And now we'll move on to the Zone Committee annual reports, and I'm not sure whether the three chairs are coming up together or whether we go one by one. So could I invite the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee to come to the table?
Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Mayor Dalzell. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk on our annual report for 2015. I take it it's been read by all. So,
yep.
I'm not a fan of reading what everyone's already written, so I'm not sure how you want to run this. Would you like to ask questions on it now, or like me to talk a little bit more about the report?
I'm really in your hands. We haven't done it this way before, but I have to say that after our, sort of discussions with ECAN commissioners, we have been reminded that this is a joint approach between ECAN and the Christchurch City Council, and an incredibly and Selwyn District Council in some instances as well. But it's an incredibly positive, collaborative approach, and I know Pauline sits on this one for the council, and the feedback we get is very positive. So it seemed to me that we were missing an opportunity by not using the public forum of the council meeting to receive the reports and to invite the chairs, to provide a bit of a flavour for the issues that they're grappling with, and then perhaps to engage in a bit of an exchange with councillors in this forum, bearing in mind that it's a public forum and it's a great opportunity to be really reflecting on the work that the zone committees are doing as part of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy.
Okay. So, taking that in mind, then I'll go on to looking forward to challenges and opportunities going forward. We're very grateful for the opportunity to submit in June 2015 on the Stormwater Management Plan, the 35-year plan. Since then, one of the challenges we've had and been identified by community is the length of that plan. A number are concerned with it, and that it may not eventuate due to financial pressures, changes in councils, members, etc. And some have said that we're not valuing the waterways as much as they would like the community to value the waterways. So, working alongside, what we've come up with is that a number of them would like to see more work done sooner rather than later. A number of them quoted the old Benjamin Franklin one: why put off till tomorrow what you can do today, sort of thing. Others have mentioned that the cost of fixing today will exacerbate fixing in 15, 20 years' time. And if that is the case, which is possibly likely, would they be fixed at all? So what we're asking is that working together with us, being a conduit with the community, is doing that behavioural change together. I think it's paramount. And then not just with community, but with the business groups, community groups, and the farming community that we do have out there. So that's one of the challenges, is how we can not look at saying each other has to do that, but how we can all do it together. We're quite blessed in the way that we have a lot of really good community groups out there, from the Styx River right through to the Avon, the Ehutai and Opawaho. So it's really around bringing them all together, sitting down with zone committee councillors and looking at how we can all do this together much sooner and at less costs. We've got some wonderful opportunities ahead. We've laid the groundwork with a number of projects already, in particular the erosion and sediment trials that we've been doing on the Port Hills. We're starting to get some of those results back now, and Environment Canterbury are already looking at them and how they can bring them into their guidelines around development for the Port Hills. The Medusa project around Riccarton. We've got the University of Canterbury trialling runoffs from our residentials and the effects that all those contaminants have on the waterways. We hope to have some of those results tabled tonight at our zone committee meeting, with more trials coming over the following months.
Might pay if we explain what Medusa means.
Yes. So Medusa is a
Modelled
project.
estimated discharge of urban stormwater.
Yeah. So that's bullet point 3, is it? Yeah. So yeah, that's around contaminants from housing, from roofs, from using copper down pipes, all the runoff from your car parking. And it's not just the residentials, but there's others as well. We're targeting around the Addington Brook, in particular with businesses. Simple things like unpainted roofs and the effects that they have, the contaminants. So one solution could be to paint all those unpainted roofs. The shopping malls, the car parks make up a huge catchment of contaminants, brake fluids, battery acids, that sort of thing. So it's around making changes, behavioural changes, but also there may be the need to have some type of enforcement policies in place as well, just to encourage them a little bit more to participate. So yeah, that's where we see a lot of opportunities over the next 2 years, working with Environment Canterbury and Christchurch City Council and Selwyn District Council. Kia ora. So happy to take questions.
Yeah, well, can I kick off with just some of the challenges that you're identifying? It seems to me that we actually need almost a New Zealand-wide approach to, I hadn't really been aware of the significance of the copper, for example, because, I've driven past brand new buildings that have gone up and I've gone, gosh, that copper looks great. And then I had no idea that it's damaging our waterways through the stormwater system, and that there's really nothing that you can do to stop that. And it really concerned me that why wouldn't we have built that into our performance or requirements around building standards before we started using so much copper?
Yeah, we're probably a little hesitant, I think, when I think back to Helen Clark with the shower heads. There was such she got quite a bit of backlash around that the shower head, using the environmentally waters that use less water. I think people remember that. The backlash she got from that, I think that stopped them trying to regulate building standards. But
actually that's a good point, because sometimes, people can run a political campaign around language like nanny state or whatever, but actually how are we going to take responsibility for environmental, for our environment if we don't think about the front end of the decisions that are going to have damaging impacts on our environment?
And that's for me, it all policies, process, and that, to me, it's all about values. And we need to show we really do value our waterways in Christchurch. We have some of the most pristine drinking water in New Zealand. And I notice it every time I travel south, north, west. We are so blessed with the drinking water here, untreated. And even from a physical presence, our waterways, the recreational values that it holds, the cultural values, the social values, even the spiritual values. I cast my mind back to pre-earthquake days when I'm along Oxford Terrace. And I used to see people out there in the early mornings doing Tai Chi on the riverbanks. And I'd stop and talk to them after a while. And they says they can't think of any better place to do that in the morning, beside the flowing waters. So there's all that spiritual connections and the emotions tied with it. And goodness knows, the community of Christchurch, we need some uplifting in our communities.
Yeah. Thank you. Vicky Yanyani.
Thank you. I'm just noticing a lot around the Riccarton Island area, particularly the ground streams drying up this summer. And I notice in the report the importance of rainfall in the winter months to recharge those. But then also I'm wondering what's being done about the very real impact of climate change, given the drier circumstances that we'll see on the east coast, and the fact that rainfall which recharges those streams will probably diminish. What is there any work being done on that, or is it not being done?
As I'm aware, we can't change climate change to suit our individual needs at the moment.
Well, we can.
What I
but you
do
probably
know
can't,
is
no.
that we will have less frequent rain days, but they will be more severe. So it's like the rural community, the dairy farming, irrigators. They need to think of ways where they can capture that water during those wet moments for the dry periods.
So is your group doing any work on
So we've got, yes, we're getting reports either tonight's meeting or the following meeting on the streams. We had a quick presentation a couple of months ago when it first came out in the public. Oh no, sorry, that was at the St. Knox community one. Yeah. We've looked into it. We do know that drinking water, the wells are not affecting it. We've been told that they're not the cause of that. Yeah.
No,
Can I just
What
help
we could- yeah,
Ruben
sorry.
there, but by saying that the zone committee, we don't really have any powers as such, but we can recommend to ECAN and to
Okay.
council, and
Yeah.
out of these reports, we will actually bring some recommendations, perhaps management systems and controls and suggestions, and we'll be doing that tonight with the with Brian Jenkins' report, I believe.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
Connie.
Yanni.
Thank you. I was just interested in page 118 of our report, which is basically the progress to achieve the targets. There's no specific action for water use efficiency, no specific action for irrigated land area, no specific action for energy security and efficiency, and I was keen to understand why not, and what you're doing in that space, and also whether you had any target around monitoring and enforcement of the waterways, given that the concerns that have been raised around the number of complaints and the lack of enforcement.
Kia ora, Ian. So the irrigated land, it's not a high priority for us, given that only 5% of the catchment is actually irrigated, but we are keeping a close grip on that. The only irrigated land, the majority of that 5% sits out with Southern District around West Melton area, and there's a small percentage on the south banks of the Waitangi community around Toots Island. So we don't see that as a main contributing factor for water quality, water quantity within our zone. But we're happy to keep a watching brief along with other adjoining zones on that. Yeah. Water use efficiency, other than encouraging working with Environment Canterbury on best water use within the homes, we certainly advise them on how to communicate with the public, with the community. We're not in a position, we haven't looked at putting, I think Environment Canterbury already have those regulations in place around water use and the monitoring. It's just that they don't monitor. Residential, at the residential. Each house has a well meter, but we don't actually monitor use. It could be in years to come that the farming community say enough of us, we're not to blame. What are the residentials? How are they best using their water? Yeah. We can't keep blaming the rural community for the degradation of waterways or the lack of the quantity. And they will say one day, what are you urban people doing to monitor this use of your waters? Yeah. And the same with the quality. So we need to pick our game up in that. I don't know if we want to come down heavy-handed on the residential properties and limit the amount of water they put restrictors on them. I know at home we have restrictors, but not in Christchurch. We're not allowed to, we only get use of water for drinking purposes in the house only, whereas communities in Christchurch, they can use it to water their gardens, water their vegetables, their cars, wash their cars on the weekend, for whatever, yeah.
Seems
I mean,
utterly wasteful to me, of very good water.
That all ends up down in your stormwater. So you've got drinking water, pure drinking water that's untreated, ending up in your stormwater.
I know, and it's just crazy.
And I thought, so if I can just
look,
add to
last
that Ruben's actually pointing out that there's many mechanisms to actually address the water supply issue rather than even going straight to, say, charging for it. That is just not on the agenda at the moment, but
No,
there's
no,
many
no, no.
mechanisms
But,
that we can
but
use.
the zone committee could only make a recommendation
Recommendation.
anyway, so
Yeah.
it's not a,
That's
that,
right.
that's not on the agenda. But I think what you're saying is that monitoring use and actually feeding that back in. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think we should be doing more as a council about seeing whether that there are easy ways that we could help support people to put in water collection, rainwater collection systems so they could water their gardens and wash their cars with that. There are lots of different ways that we could help people to put those systems in place, and actually we build resilience in our communities and in our infrastructure by doing that anyway.
Yeah, so it's around how do we need to incentivise behavioural change?
Incentivise as opposed to punish.
Yeah.
Phil.
So, thank you, Ruben, because this report came to the Infrastructure, Transport Environment Committee earlier, and we appreciate though that all of the councillors can consider it. I just wanted to ask you about the water quality aspects, and like you've got some plans for increasing awareness by working with community groups and that kind of thing. But I'm just wondering, is this, given the issues of the seriousness of the quality of our water, is this something that in fact we need a more vigorous education program to actually achieve the goals? Yeah, that's one question.
So we've been fed numerous reports on water quality over the 5 years that we've been operating. I think the trick is for us is how do we communicate that back out to all those various communities, and are they what is and then understand what's an acceptable standard from them, and then look at how we can attain those standards. We did an earlier project along the Avon River stormwater, where we were engaging with community groups and a few individuals. That's something we'd like to repeat again, be a part of with City Council for the Opawa or Heathcote River. But I think that the answer to that question is what is the community's acceptable levels, and how can we reach those standards? Yeah.
So, and the part of that too then is in terms of if you take Addington Brook, where you're working with businesses and industries to get this, well, not only get the message, but improve the quality of their systems. And so you're working alongside them, but at what point, in fact, should council or ECAN be actually taking a backup action by way of some enforcement?
Building compliance could be one way. I don't like using the term policies and that, but at some stage you can only ask them to do so much. And it's up to those individuals to actually pick it up and run with it. But for those that don't, it's how do we get them on board? The minority that are still, for whatever purpose. Again, similar lines with the residentials. Do we put an incentive in there, the stick and carrot? Yeah, I don't know. Capturing at point of source makes a logical option, saying that we will not accept X amount of certain level of contaminants from your property. That means that they'll have to capture it on source, cleanse it, and then ship it out. Yeah, something like those lines. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you. No, that was the last question. But otherwise, I would have had Ben and a couple of others who had their hands up first. So, look, thank you very much for your contribution, and it's a great start to I think a much more engaged reporting process, so we're very grateful that you are able to come.
Can I just add too that Arapata is doing a brilliant job. There's 10 members on the committee and they're all volunteers, and most of them are highly skilled and knowledgeable about water, and it's a pleasure to be on that committee, and I feel it's really finding its feet. And the recommendations from the committee, I think, are going to become stronger and more focused in the near future.
Yeah, thank you.
Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Kia ora. There is a council recommendation on this one, and if we could just quickly resolve that we allow the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee to to support them working with Environment Canterbury and other territorial authorities to ask central government to develop national measures and industry standards to reduce contaminants from metal roofs and brake pads to improve water quality. I think that's sensible. Pauline would like to move that, seconded by Phil, and I'll put that motion.
Can we just debate, raise questions, or?
Yeah, okay, well, I just wonder whether we should move on. Is the debate going to be very long?
Well, no, I just want to, I mean, is staff going to be here for this report, or is it just the zone committee, basically?
Yeah, it's just the zone committee.
Okay,
It's
so
already been to ITE,
Right.
and we had this discussion that
It's a
we were
minute.
simply going to present the reports, but maybe...
Yeah, so just in terms of part A, I just had a question about the concern that's been raised around metals.
Okay,
Do we-
let's leave it then. I'll call the next...
No,
no,
it won't take long.
I know,
It's a
no.
really simple question.
I don't want to. I want to get all of the committee's reports dealt with. So, rather, I haven't got staff here I'm sorry. Let's just move on to the next item.
Propose an amendment.
I thought it was relatively easy just to pass this resolution, but it's not. So, could I invite the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee to come to the table? Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I thought it was a straightforward thing to do because it had already been to the ITI committee, but I'd just rather leave it and move on. Thank you.
Thank you. I gave this report 3 weeks ago, I think, to the ITE
Yes.
committee. So for those members who were there, I'll try to vary what I say a little bit for your benefit, within the context of the report, of course. I pointed out at that report the makeup of the committee, which I think is worth dwelling on for a little while. If you turn to the back page, you can see that they are a very handsome lot. And we have an interesting composition because there are 4 runaka on the peninsula, and each has a representative on our committee. And the commissioner who is present at our meetings is Elizabeth Cunningham, and she is also a member of Te Runanga o Ngaitahu. So we basically function in a bicultural way. This council is represented ably by Andrew Turner, and the staff present are led by Peter Kingsbury. The other people on the committee are community representatives, as well as being 2 of the members being chairs of the 2 community boards on the peninsula. And Paula Smith is with me here today, and she is chair of the Littleton Mount Herbert Community Board. So this makes for a very interesting committee. There are 10 zone committees that comprise the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, and they all deal with very different situations and predicaments. Fortunately, on the peninsula, we are not compromised by power generators or irrigators or intensive farming, and we basically have the opportunity to do the best that we can within the strategy for the environment, and this is what we focus on. And perhaps leading that is our access to what is called immediate steps funding, which works out at about $100,000 a year. And the idea that is with partnership with the local landowners, volunteer groups, and with schools, we can subsidize the planting of riparian strips and fencing. And we have done this now, and we've expended about $360,000. It's gone up slightly since this report was presented. We've involved schools and young people, and this is where really the strategy meets the ground. We've been successful in fencing and planting 2 streams on Banks Peninsula, Kiuta, Kitai, from the mountains to the sea. So this is really quite significant, and it's one of our priorities that we do this to maintain the biological diversity of those streams. And as you're well aware, I'm sure, water quantity is an issue on Banks Peninsula. Fortunately, the immediate problems have been relieved by the recent rains, but until those rains came, there were lots of streams and wells drying up because we depend entirely on water which falls on the peninsula. The other significant issue is sediment. Sediment from the volcanic soils of Banks Peninsula, which are rich in phosphorus and constitute a nutrient. And you may be aware in the press recently there have been articles about the state of Lake Wairewa, which is extremely problematical and a very tough problem to solve. Sediment is also an issue in Whakaraupo, and at the moment there is a management group being established comprising of the City Council, ECAN, Tront, the Runanga of Rapaki, and the Zone Committee. And this body will be charged with producing a strategy and action plan for the whole of the catchment of Littleton Harbour. It will, of course, include the port company. So this is a major initiative which is just about to get underway formally. A lot of work has already been done by ECAN to provide the background information, but very shortly that governance body will be announced, and I think it is going to be a very exciting initiative, and hopefully will do a great deal to come to terms with sediment discharges and other discharges in Whakaraupo. When I spoke to the Infrastructure Committee, I talked about climate change and how both the city and the peninsula are exposed to the era of consequences, as I think of climate change, which we are entering into. This goes back to the unstable soils of Banks Peninsula, the likelihood of sea level rise, of flash floods and of droughts and all these things, which I'm sure we're all going to have to grapple with in the future, if not already. I think that those are the things that I really wanted to touch on in an introductory way to this report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just a couple. Glenn, Andrew.
Thank you. Just I really would like to be able to ask this of all the zones, but whether you'd be open to more frequent reporting, perhaps quarterly, given the significance of these issues.
Quite possibly. I mean, this has suddenly happened because we haven't been reporting. This is the first annual report. We've been in existence for 5 years. And as I say, within the last 3 weeks, I'm suddenly doing it twice. Right. We've also done it with ECAN, so it's 3 times. If you perceive the value in it, we would be more than happy to report on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Thank you, Steve, for the presentation, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank you for the work that you've done personally in raising the Wairewa issues. Certainly very aware that you've made some comments in the media and so on, raising the issues there. But my question relates to the Whole of Harbour Catchment Management Plan, which comes out of the Littleton Port Recovery Plan actions. To what extent do you feel that it's important, given that this may well, and we hope it would in fact, embody the principle of Ki Uta Kitai, to what extent do you think it's important that the local community and the wider community are engaged in that whole process in order to get the most out of the opportunity?
I think it's vital, and I don't think it's yet evident how that is going to be done. It's quite possible that I will be asked as chair of the Zone Committee to be part of that management group, but my expertise doesn't lie in Whakaraupo. I think there's quite possibly a very real need for input from local people on that management committee. At the moment, one person perhaps will be there, that's June Swindells, who represents Rapaki, but I certainly think there is room for another community person to be on that management committee. They can be identified. And of course, whatever happens will need a wide extension of and inclusion of local communities, because they have already done an immense amount of work over the last 8 or 10 years and know their own harbour very well. So yes, they should be included.
Look, thank you very much. The Zone Committees report how frequently to ITI?
They're going to be monthly, I believe.
They'll be monthly from now on. So I think if we stick to the annual reports here at the council, it just keeps a public eye on the work of the Zone Committee from the council being in partnership with ECAN. So I think with monthly reports to ITI, that then lifts the awareness at our infrastructure, transport and environment members of that committee. So I think that will work really well, but thank you for the first time you've appeared before us in this role, and I too like to join with Andrew and everyone here. Thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
And will continue to do. Thank you.